What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another Tottenham update. Quite a bit to speak about today, and we're going to get into some other stuff a bit later on in the stream as well. But without further ado, let's get straight into this Tottenham update, starting off with Javi Simons as Builder reporting that Tottenham are competing with Arsenal, Manchester United and Newcastle to sign Javi Simons. RB Leipzig want at least 70 million euros for the midfielder. His agent has been holding talks with interested clubs over a transfer for the player. And also it was said by, I think, quite a reliable source yesterday that Javi Simons has informed RB Leipzig that he wants to move clubs this summer.
Yeah, competing with Arsenal, Man United and Newcastle is in the best position to be in. But we've obviously got Champions League football to offer, as do Arsenal and Newcastle. Man United, at the moment, seem to be leading the race of Brian and Mbeumo. I find it hard to believe they're going to have money for Cunha and Mbeumo and Simons, but I didn't know they were going to have money for Cunha and Mbeumo. So
or just Cunha.
Or just Cunha. So, what do I know about Man United's finances? Arsenal, probably in need of a player like Simons, with Fabio Vieira leaving and Martin Odegaard being their only number 10, and also the fact that when he was off the boil and also injured, they struggled a lot. And they're also looking for a player who could potentially probably play out wide as well, with Martinelli off form. So I think Simons obviously fits in there, but there's talk of other signings there at Arsenal. Newcastle don't really have a number 10, really. They've got Bruno, Joelinton, Tonali. He's probably a profile they don't really have. As well, Simons has an ability to play on the wing. They don't really have a right winger, so he could probably fit in there. With Tottenham, we're looking for a versatile player to play in the forward line. We obviously have Maddison. Decky's injured, but we have him as well. But obviously, I'm sure Simons is a world-class talent. I don't think he'll be lacking game time if he came to Tottenham. I think he'd probably be the best of the bunch if he came. So I'd love him. I just think spending big money, I'm not saying it's unnecessary. I'd love to sign him because I think he's just a fantastic talent and he'll really improve the quality of the team. I don't know. I just think we've got a tough sell.
Yeah, 100%. And I also feel like if we're not going to push the boat out on Eberechi Eze, who pretty much covers the same positions as Javi Simons, if we're not going to do it for him, why would we do it for Javi Simons? I know Javi Simons is of top quality, but so is Eberechi Eze.
He's young. He's, 22 compared to Eze, who's nearly 27, or is he 27 now?
I think, he's around 26, 27. So I just feel like if we're not going to go for Eze, we're not going to really go for Simons, and we're probably going to look at different places in the squad.
But I think, he's 26, but he's actually going to be 27 in a few days, Eze. But I think we would probably more likely do it for Simons than Eze, given the age range. For the age range, you've got a point. But Champions League experience as well.
Yeah, but there's also, there has been rumours of attitude issues and stuff like that with Javi Simons. I just feel like Eberechi Eze is just tailor-made, ready to go in right here, right now, where Javi Simons doesn't have that Premier League experience as well. Yeah, but
he's got Champions League experience. He's got experience in top leagues. And big European, big international competitions.
Yeah.
So I've got no worries about Simons there. It's just more. I think you're probably, from a club perspective, if they're looking at both those players, I think they probably land on Simons if in terms of putting the money on the table for one of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like with Javi Simons, there will be that question mark because, like I said, we've heard of attitude issues. It has been spoken about in the press as well. It's not just about quality of player and experience. It's down to of character of player as well. And I'm not sitting here and saying Javi Simons wouldn't be brilliant for Spurs if he was to join. I think he would, but I don't know. I think Eze and Javi Simons would probably be quite level pegging in terms of who Spurs would want.
No, I agree. I'm just saying I think they would land on Simons.
Yeah, maybe. But and also another reason why they might land on Simons actually as well is because Palace are sticking to that 60 million up front. If we are going to do it with RB Leipzig, will they demand money up front? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on from him. Let's talk about Mohammed Kudus now, because The Guardian are reporting that Tottenham are preparing to test the waters with a £50 million bid for West Ham forward Mohammed Kudus. Kudus does have an £85 million release clause in his contract with the Hammers, and which could be triggered at any point this transfer window. I love Mohammed Kudus. I think he's a top player. There are other clubs interested, as you can see on screen right now. I just can't see West Ham in any stretch of the imagination accepting a £50 million bid from us. But when you're looking at him compared to the other targets that we're going for, Brian and Mbeumo and also Antoine Semenyo, I'd prefer him. I'd love to see him through the door.
Yeah, I think his ball retention is a joke. Similar to like Adama Traore, where when he gets into full gear, you can't really stop him. It's so hard. He's got unbelievable upper body strength. He's got unbelievable ability to just keep the ball in such tight situations where you think, how the hell is he going to wriggle out of this kind of position? He's like Moussa Dembele with a bit more attacking flair and a bit more ability to like be direct and go for goal.
Just not as strong as Moussa.
Maybe not as strong, but he's got really good strength and he's maybe a bit faster.
He's much faster. Yeah.
He's like Dembele off the wing kind of thing. That's how I describe him, with a bit more pace. So I really like him. He's very much a player, ball to feet, take people on, get shots off from the edge of the box, very direct.
Versatile as well.
Versatile, can play in the number 10, can play in the number 9. I haven't really seen him play great in the number 9, but I think I've seen him play there a few times. Definitely in the World Cup for Ghana, I remember in the 10 he was brilliant. Obviously off the right, that's where he's been. Well, yeah, I said that's where he's been playing for West Ham, but last season he couldn't because Bowen was there and Lopetegui especially didn't really play him too much off the right. They played him off the left, and that's what led, I think, to him being a bit disgruntled. It wasn't a great season for him, which I think soured relationships between him and West Ham, and I don't know what happened with him. There was a big falling out, I know, of Lopetegui, and clearly I don't know what his relationship with Potter is, but maybe as well he's frustrated with the fact that West Ham are so low down and he thinks he should be, battling with a club a lot higher up in the table. So I think there's a good chance he leaves, or I think there's a good chance he'll want to leave. But as you say, West Ham dealing with Tottenham is I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they'd be willing to deal with us. Also, we know they've been willing to deal with Arsenal because they did that with Bryce, didn't they? So, yeah. And obviously Chelsea, I think they've done many deals with Chelsea before. But with Tottenham, we haven't done. Last time we did a deal with Scott Parker, that was 2011.
Yeah, there is history of it, but you're going back a long way.
A long time. They weren't. Were they the owners then?
Defoe, Canute. No, they weren't. So yeah, look, it's very unlikely. I think the only way a deal like this happens is if we go and trigger that release clause. I don't think West Ham entertain any offers from Tottenham.
But I also think it's a really good kind of, when I think about the combination on the wing with Kudus being able to retain the ball brilliantly, drive us up the pitch with his carrying, and then you get someone like Son or Tel running in behind, covering that space, because he's going to draw players out because they can't really allow him space because he's got a great long shot as well. Yeah. And then that's going to leave space for the likes of Son and Tel to run in behind, or Johnson or whoever it is. So I think he would be. I think comparing him to Semenyo, I think he's a better fit.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's not even just him at West Ham as well, because like you say, he had a bit of a poor season last year. But even before he joined West Ham, when he was at Ajax, we were, talking about him in transfer targets, videos that we were doing. And I think he's a player that I've just loved for so long. Got such a great skill set about him, probably one of the best dribblers in the league. So I'd love to see him at Spurs. I just can't see it happening, unfortunately. Next up, we're going to talk about Jacob Ramsey again, as the Mail are reporting that Villa are expected to listen to offers for several of their players as they aim to offset their losses. It's explained that Ramsey could be sacrificed by the Midlands clubs, as his sale would count as pure profit in their books. Villa would accept an offer of around £40 million for the academy graduate, with Tottenham and West Ham both monitoring the situation.
Yeah, and we've been long-term admirers of Jacob Ramsey. I think he would fit in really well with what Frank wants to do in terms of his midfield, how versatile he is. He's very he's got good strength, but he's good at carrying the ball forward. He's good at making late runs into the box as well. 40 million is not even a bad price, but it's just about where he fits in the squad with who we got at the moment. Do I think right now he's probably a better player than Sarr? Probably. But are we going to sell Sarr? Probably not. And he's going to be part of the squad.
He's also more versatile than Sarr.
He is, but we're not going to sell him.
Yeah.
Then you've got Basuma and Bentancur might be leaving, but we're talking about replacing them with a number 6 or a defensive midfielder. Ray Ramsey's not really that. He's a different kind of midfielder. So it's about how many midfielders are leaving, how much space there is in the squad, can we fit him in? But I think if there is a space for him, I mean, he's a good option.
Yeah, I really liked him last summer, and I was quite positive about bringing him in last summer. And then since then, he's had a very good season for Aston Villa. You know, he's been a really important player for them, Champions League, Premier League, and I think he's really shown his worth and his value as a Premier League player in his last season gone. So I'd like to see him at Spurs, but yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's hard to see where he actually fits in. Next up, we are going to talk about Arnaud Kalimuendo, as a publication out in France called Ouest France says that Tottenham are one of the two clubs with the most interest in Kalimuendo. Rennes want at least or more than 30 million euros to sell him. Yeah, we heard these links a couple of days ago, didn't we? From, who was it from?
The Telzik. What's his name?
It's not Edin Terzic.
Not Terzic.
Yeah, I know.
Telzik. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Canzolic.
Yeah. That's it.
We heard it from him, who's a very reliable French journalist. And then here's more from reports out of France that Spurs are one of the two clubs really interested in him.
Yeah, and so it seems to be heating up quite a bit. Obviously, what that means for Charlatan remains to be seen. But he's a very interesting kind of player. Has been pretty decent in the last 3 years in France, getting better each year, scoring more goals for better teams. So, and last season, 17 goals. I know quite a few of them were penalties, but he seems to have a very good instincts in the box. He seems to have a different kind of profile to a very different profile to Solanke, which is exactly what we need. We need someone with a bit of pace, running in behind, a bit of a poacher, sniffing out chances. But also, what I think what he brings different to Solanke is better finishing ability in the box when it comes to finding the corner of the net. Or when it comes to taking a touch, just take a swiveling and shooting off the cuff instinctively. Whereas Solanke very much seems to rely on crosses, first touch finishes. I think Kalimuendo passing the ball into the box and him engineering his own shooting opportunity, essentially. I think he's much more capable of doing something like that than Solanke is, who seems to require service, whereas he can engineer his own shooting opportunities. So that is something that I think we need in a front line.
Yeah. Profile's very similar to Whistler, and we saw how kind of Frank brought his game on and made him a star in the Premier League, scoring 19 Premier League goals last season. I like the thought of a dynamic of that type of striker alongside a Dom Solanke. Depends on who you're playing against, where you can profile the right striker to play against the right opposition as well. If you want to pair them up front together as well, I think that could be a really good tool in our armoury. It does suggest if we are going to bring in a player like that, then Richarlison will be off. But you know, we're all experts on Kalimuendo today, but nobody heard of him a couple of days ago.
I've also seen him by Tactico as being compared to young Jermaine Defoe. Someone who can a bit of a sharpshooter. Not maybe obviously Defoe took shots from all kind of angles, but he engineered his own shooting opportunities. And I think that is something that we're missing, a striker who can do that. Yeah,
I've also seen him being compared to an Aguero light.
Aguero light. Wouldn't mind that.
So that's Kalimuendo. Next up, we're going to talk about Vanderson again, as a journalist out in Brazil called Joaquim Pereira says that Tottenham are making a strong push for Monaco right-back Vanderson. Spurs are currently in the best position to sign Vanderson.
Well, obviously I think it'd be a great signing and it'd be great competition for Porro. On the right-hand side. We obviously have Spence, who can play right-back at the moment. So, unless Spence is leaving, I just can't see, or obviously we could move Spence to left-back, but I just find it hard we're going to drop a big amount of money on him. I just find it hard to believe. I could be wrong, but there has been links with him before. We were heavily linked with him last summer as well. So, clearly there's interest, and I think he would be a great signing. But it's, again, whether we can make those numbers work in the squad. But I think on the face of it, would be a phenomenal signing to have him compete with Porro, and also Champions League experience as well. Yeah, that's the thing. It all comes down to the squad numbers at the end of the day. But if we are just going to look just at this player and how he fits in the squad, I think it's a really good fit. But look, we'll see how they can crunch numbers and see if they can make it work. But apparently there is interest in there, according to reports out in Brazil. This is an interesting one regarding Alfie Devine and Ashley Phillips. Danny Hall of the Sheffield Star says that Sheffield United are considering a double swoop for young Tottenham pair Ashley Phillips, 19, and Alfie Devine, who's 20 years old. So obviously Sheffield United just missed out on Premier League football
with losing in the playoff final in heartbreaking fashion, and they'll be eyeing to come up next season for sure, and they'll be one of the favourites to come up. Alfie Devine, fairly successful loan spell out in Belgium last year with Westerlo. Ashley Phillips on the back of two really good spells in the Championship as well with Plymouth and Stoke. So I kind of feel like Ashley Phillips should be making a step up from that. But however, if he is going to play in a team that, you know, are flying in the Championship, are going to be one of the top teams in the Championship and get promotion off the back of that to the Premier League, I think going for them two could be really good deals for them and for us.
Yeah, someone in the upper echelons of the Championship is not a bad move for Ashley Phillips, especially for Devine as well, who's had one loan in the Championship at Plymouth, which was had mixed results. It was sometimes good, but other games I remember he wasn't getting in the team, but I think obviously he's had a good spell Westerlo, and I would be very intrigued if he played for one of the better teams in the Championship, in a team who's dominant and he can be kind of in a team that's quite attacking, how he fares in that kind of environment. Ashley Phillips as well. We've spoken a lot about what his future holds, and is he even ready for a chance for first team action at Tottenham? And I'm very intrigued because at Stoke, at Plymouth, and at Blackburn, a lot of the fans of those clubs have been very, very impressed by him. So I would prefer a move to the Premier League, but if that's not going to happen, then somewhere in the upper echelons of the Championship at Sheffield United, who nearly got promoted last year, would be something I'm really intrigued by and see how he does.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, you know, if they can do really well in a team that, you know, flies to promotion, I think that will tell us a lot about them.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we're going to talk about Vicario. Tom Barkley says that Tottenham are understood not to be looking to sell Vicario this summer with rumours of AC Milan. I mean, we've been talking about this a lot over the last couple of days. And this is kind of what I expected anyway. I don't think Spurs will be looking to sell Vicario this summer.
I don't think they'll be looking to sell, but I think sometimes opportunities present themselves. And if Milan come in from with a really good offer and he's willing to go and they need a new number one, he might consider it. Maybe Tottenham think, look, there's a good amount of money there and maybe we could reinvest that. But I think on the face of it, if they're looking to sign him on a cheap deal because they think, I don't know what they're thinking, but he's our number one. But if they think they can get him for a decent price, I think they're looking at the wrong keeper.
Yeah, and they're looking at the wrong club as well.
And the wrong club.
Let's talk about Cuti Romero, because there was a tweet that said Romero is inclined to join Atletico, with whom he's already spoken to. And some fishy business going on social media yesterday, where Sasha Tavaleri, who's obviously a reliable journalist, quote retweeted that yesterday with an hourglass, a red emoji, and are we thinking something is happening here in the background?
Well, I think that's definitely what he's implying, isn't it? So, I think Romero hasn't had that conversation with Frank. So right now, I think the chances are his mind is leaning towards leaving to Atletico Madrid. Whether Frank can have a frank conversation with him and swing his mind and convince him to at least give us another year or even sign a contract, any of these things, which are unlikely. We'll have to wait and see. Now it would only happen when we come back. But what's interesting is apparently Atletico, first of all, I've seen links to them signing potentially Otamendi, and I've seen links to them being very close to signing Pierre and Hincapié. Maybe they're signing Hincapié with view of using him at left back, but if they're using him at centre back, all of a sudden that's already two centre backs they could be in line to sign this summer. Are they going to then drop a big fee on Romero after dropping a big fee on Hincapié, who I assume is a big fee on Hincapié? So that obviously plays a part in it. And if Atletico all of a sudden drop out, where does that leave Romero? I don't know.
Leaves him at Spurs.
Probably, unless anyone else serious is going to come in for him. But we know Real Madrid just signed Heisen, so they're probably not going to be interested in signing him. Does a Barca go in for him or something like that?
I feel these players, though, the Otamendi's and Hincapié's like fallback options if they can't agree a deal with Tottenham. That's what I feel it is. And look, if they can't agree a deal, I don't really see Romero going anywhere else this summer.
Yeah, Atletico is the one, really, isn't it? Obviously, there was talks in Madrid, but it was more talks about the fans, not really Madrid themselves. So we'll wait to see what the outcome is with Romero and Frank Romero and the club, and if the price that we're going to put across is reasonable and Atletico are willing to pay. A lot of different moving parts. So it's still not an unlikely chance that he will stay at Tottenham. But I think right now, if I was to put money on what would happen, I would still say he's probably closer to leaving.
And last but not least, this is a bit of speculation that has just literally come on the timeline in the last 20 minutes. And it's from reliable journalist Edu Burgos. And it's regarding Palmeiras midfielder Richard Rios. And he says he's got a lot of Premier League clubs looking at him at the moment. Tottenham, Crystal Palace and Newcastle like him a lot. However, there is nothing with Atletico Madrid. They've just signed Johnny Cardoso, so that makes sense. And I've actually been looking into this player a bit over the past week or so because his name's been a lot in the press. Obviously, he's playing at the Club World Cup at this moment in time with Palmeiras. He's been spoken about by journalists as a freak athlete. Apparently, he's just an unbelievable engine in the middle of the park. Very aggressive player, and a number 6.
Yeah, and from looking at his data, it seems sensational. He's got amazing defensive stats, got amazing ball carrying stats, got amazing passing stats, and even got amazing attacking stats when it comes to goal scoring and assisting as well. So he seems like an absolute all-action midfielder. 25 years of age, obviously playing out in Palmeiras, so it could be considered a step up. Although when you watch the South American clubs at the moment, this Club World Cup competing, they definitely compete well against, and it also, when in previous Club World Cups, they've also won them not that infrequent, should I say. So you can't obviously just say because he's playing in South America means he's no good. I don't think that's true. And obviously Colombia are a good international team as well. I don't know if he starts regularly for them, but I'm going to assume he does. So this could be something, again, one of these signings where the data really leads us to thinking, wow, he could be the answer. I think he will really suit a double pivot role as well, from what it seems here. Because it seems as though he likes to have license to kind of run all over the place. So that's quite interesting. So I guess watch this space on that one with Richard Rios.
Yeah, signing Richard Rios and Arnaud Kalimuendo a month ago. I don't think anyone had that on their list, probably of transfer targets or their bingo card. But in terms of Richard Rios, Edu Burgos does say that he's going to be available for 20 to 25 million euros.
And that
so that is going to prick up Levy's ears for sure. But if he's as good as the data suggests, because I'll tell you the truth, I've never seen him play. I never even heard of him before a week or two ago. So, look, if the data is actually of how good he is on the pitch, then I'm all for these kind of deals, because I think these are the deals that Frank is accustomed to getting in the past and getting really good kind of tunes out of these players.
Absolutely.
So that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below about all the news stories that we have brought to you today. We've got some interesting content to speak about. So basically, we have been speaking a lot in all our videos, transfer updates, about squad numbers, about club train numbers, and about the issues that Spurs are going to face next season. So we did face similar issues going into last season. We made it work eventually. Spence had to be out of the team in the first half of the season. Then we left Timo out of the team in the second half of the season.
And Kinski.
So this season we're facing, I think, even more issues in terms of the club trained and the squad situation. So currently you're allowed a squad of 25 men going into the Champions League. So that's 25 plus anyone that's on the B list. So anyone that's on the B list is people like Moore, Jamie Donnelly. They have to be born 1st of January 2004 or younger than that, basically. Now, because we've only got 2 club-trained players on our roster, which is Austin and Scarlett, that means that is going to decrease our squad size by 3 players. So that means we're only allowed a squad of
22 players.
2 players, sorry. So we're only allowed a squad of 23. If we sell Scarlett, that means we're only allowed a squad of 22 or loan him out, which makes it very, very difficult for us. And if we bring on the graphic of the squad, so this is the current squad size, which is a squad of 28. This includes the likes of Vuskovic, it includes the likes of Phillips and Scarlett, and players Solomon and players that weren't in the squad last season. So obviously this is a bit of an inflated numbers, and a lot of these players are going to leave. But if I took out those players, it would have been a squad of 24, I believe, all the players that were part of us last season. So that means that if, let's say, Scarlett isn't there, we would have to sell 2 players just to balance the books. And then after that, we would only allow to be a one-in, one-out situation. So we're in a very precarious situation here with the squad numbers.
Yeah, currently, when you look at that on the screen, that is 28 players for a squad that we're only allowed currently 23. If we assume Scarlett leaves, that's 27 for a squad size of 22. So that means 5 players that you see on that list, excluding Scarlett, are going to have to be either loaned out or sold just to fit the squad numbers, which is not a good situation at all, considering, first of all, how difficult it can be to sell certain players. And obviously tough decisions have to be made. After you pick 5 players to leave, then, as you say, it's one in, one out. But then all of a sudden, it's really difficult to see who those outs are going to be, because if you look at that squad, we have some real talent there. There's not many who you're looking at thinking, yeah, I'd really want to get rid of them, or we should be selling them. And on the top of that, we've got gaps in the squad, even with the full number there, which we struggled with last season to basically fulfill when we had certain players out. And that was even with a squad which we didn't even have any room to maneuver in. So how are we going to address the balance of the squad, address the gaps in the squad, improve the quality of the squad, all while shaving numbers off the squad and getting players out that we need to get out? I mean, it's a daunting task, I think.
Yeah, it really is. And if you bring up the next graphic with the positions of each player, so this is where we're at in terms of position-wise. So this is, like I said, this is a squad of 28. We need to... How many players do we need to get off that book? So we need to get five out of those books just to break even.
Plus
right?
Scarlett, yeah.
So if it's Scarlett, we need to get 6.
Including Scarlett, 6, yeah.
Yeah. So let's say Scarlett goes, right? Then let's say no one else, Solomon goes. That's 2. Then you're looking at...
You're probably loaning out Vuskovic and Phillips, I guess.
Vuskovic and Phillips, which is 4.
And Vuskovic, Phillips, and then you're maybe looking at maybe a Basuma? Oh, Donnelly, loan out Donnelly again.
Donnelly's on the B list, isn't he?
Donnelly's on the B list, okay.
So it doesn't count.
So yeah, maybe Basuma.
So Basuma, that's 5. And now one more player has to go just to break even on the squad. That's without any more signings.
Without signings, yeah. So maybe, Davis, maybe.
So Davis, all right, that's fair enough. That's Davis, that's 6. So that means if those guys leave the squad, then we'll be all right to take that squad into Europe next season. And then after that, it'll be a one-in, one-out situation. So we're looking at signing a winger for next season. It's been hot off the press. You know, we're going to go for Mbeumo. We're going to go for Semenyo. Kudus linked today. That means one of the wingers that we have to make way for them.
Mm-hmm. Striker, yeah. Kalimuendo.
Yeah. So Richarlison, you would say, probably makes way for him. I struggle to... If Son doesn't go, I struggle to see where we make that space for the winger. And also, we're talking about in the originals to go out of the 6 that Bissouma's going to go. And that means we can't replace Bissouma unless another midfielder goes.
Unless Bentancur leaves. Really, because we're not going to sell anyone else on that list, are we?
Yeah.
We're not going to sell, unless we loan out Gray, we're not going to sell him. We're not going to sell Bergvall, we're not going to sell Sarr, we're not going to sell Maddison, and we're not going to sell Decky. Unlikely anyway, I don't envisage it. So unless Bentancur leaves, where does the 6 come in? Difficult to envisage that one in, one out situation. And even in defence, you know, where does that leave manoeuvring for defence? Because right now, and maybe if Romero leaves, then we just have to replace Romero if he leaves, which isn't an improvement, an upgrade on what we got. It's just replacing our best centre-back. You've got, at the moment, Romero, Van der Ven, Danso and Dragoshin. So we've got 4 centre-backs because we're saying Davis, Phillips and Vuskovic are all going to go, or loaned out or sold. So we've got 4 there. Is that 4 enough? Are we just going to have to go forward to those 4? And if it's one in, one out, does it actually help the situation? And also, on top of that, we don't have a left back up for a doggy. How are we going to basically to get a left back for a doggy, you're going to have to sell either a centre back or one of the other midfielders to make room for him. It's just a bit of a mess. And obviously all three keepers kind of have to stay, unless you're thinking about selling Vicario and bringing in Keeley, but then you've got not much experience in the goalkeeping department. But that would obviously make room for one more space.
Yeah.
Unless, I don't know, is Keeley club trained? Maybe not.
I imagine he is.
When did he sign? Actually, I think no, because he's been on 2 loan spells.
Yeah, you might be right.
So I don't even know if that would help us. So, how do we go about getting...
Josh Keeley was at Spurs for 2 years and then 2 loan spells. No, actually just 1 year.
That's not great. So, how do we go about doing all this business? It's just it just doesn't, unless there are some
maths ain't mathing.
Unless we are going to have some of these players. They're going to be here, but not in the Champions League squad.
Yeah.
Like, maybe do we leave Gray out the Champions League squad and just sign a midfielder?
Yeah.
Is that just a difficult decision we have to make?
I mean, if you do that, you are basically saying to Gray, 1 year out the Champions League squad, get your experience in the Premier League and the Cups this season, which I wouldn't be against, because you're looking at moving forward, players like Bergwijn, players like Sarr, players like, who else on that list? Players like Moore eventually. You know, a lot of these players will turn into club-trained assets. So once they turn into club-trained assets, we're not going to have an issue anymore. But for this year and potentially next year, to maybe a lesser extent, we're going to have these issues. So if Gray's out the Champions League squad just for this season, is that the biggest issue in the world?
To be fair, if it means we can sign a midfielder, probably not.
Yeah.
Not in terms of what our squad's looking like for next season, it's not the end of the world. In terms of Gray himself, I'm sure it's going to be a massive blow, because you saw him after the Europa League final. He was part of that video, wasn't he, doing Champions League music and all that kind of stuff. Look how excited he was. So for him, I'm sure it's going to be a blow.
Yeah, look, it'll be disappointing, but I mean, Frank's a good enough manager to do it, to explain the situation. He is still a very young player. He's got a long future and a long career ahead of him. Yeah, it'll be a blow initially, but I still think if he is out that Champions League squad, it will give him time to get minutes elsewhere as well.
So then, in terms of signing a backup left back, where does it leave us with that? Even if you're signing a hybrid centre back left back, you'd have to do that to replace Romero, probably. Like where else does that lead? Because we don't have the numbers unless we keep Romero, sell a Dragoshin or Danso. We just sign Danso. We can't do that. We're not going to sell Van der Ven. So unless one of those 4 centre backs is leaving, or unless Spencer's leaving, that doesn't help us, because it means we need another right back. So the only answer really does point to Kyle Walker-Peters. It really does. I mean, I don't really see another option.
That is the sorry state of affairs that we're at right now.
I think we do have to sign him, I think.
What, on a 1-year deal?
Yeah, or maybe a 2-year deal, I think.
Your club needs you, Carl.
I think you sign him on a 2-year deal, and if I think you predominantly play him in Premier League games and Cup games, leave Champions League to and the other guys. And look, if he does all right, then there you go. You got a player there. And if he doesn't, you can maybe sell him next season.
And you know what? All the talk was about Spurs need to sell to buy right at the end of last season. And I think this is the situation that we're talking. I don't think it was a money thing. I think it was down to the makeup of the squad, why we have to sell to buy. And this is clearly evident why we have to sell to buy.
So basically the crux of it is, if we want to sign a striker, we have to sell Richarlison. If we want to sign a winger, we have to sell Son, pretty much. If we want to sign a left back, we either have to bring in Kyle Walker-Peters or sell a centre-back. And that even means we can't, if we want to sign a centre-back, we have to sell one of them. We have to sell Romero.
Yeah.
And if we want to sign a midfielder, we have to sell Bentancur.
Yeah.
Or not include Gray in the squad.
Yeah.
So any of those options I've just laid out are not great.
They're not great. Depending on who comes in, obviously. But still, it's not great. And it does leave me very worried. about this transfer window and about what our squad and the shape of our squad next season. It really does. And Frank, Johan Lang, and all the decision makers at Spurs have such difficult decisions to make. They really do. I don't understand how they're going to get around this and how we're going to have a squad that is going to be able to fight on all fronts in 4 competitions next season.
And that's also including a given that Davis and Basuma are leaving, which is, I mean, Basuma potentially, but Davis, is it a given he's leaving? Maybe not.
Yeah. Well, it's not even a given Basuma's leaving.
It's not a given,
but it's not a given.
Not a given. And also, people like Richarlison, and it's a given pretty much he's leaving. If none of them leave, then we really are screwed. Or they're just going to have to stay and not be in the squad, not be in the Champions League squad.
Yeah.
Which doesn't obviously help them.
Yeah. So obviously, that is the situation we've got coming our way over the course of this transfer window, and looking at the squad next season. If you guys are seeing something that we're not, do let us know in the comment section below, because we're here racking our brains with it, and we just don't understand how we're going to have a squad fit enough and capable enough of fighting on all 4 fronts when you're looking at the club train numbers and the number of players you're allowed in the squad for the Champions League next season.
And also the fact that we're talking about wingers and rumoured of bring one in, that just has to mean Son's leaving. That kind of has to signal that, doesn't it? I mean, how else are we going to fit them in? Unless Richarlison's leaving and we're signing like a hybrid striker winger kind of player.
Yeah.
Which Kudus maybe could be that, but...
Yeah, it's just difficult to see it, isn't it? Because it's going to be down to Son whether he wants to stay or go if the right offers come in for him. What if the right offers don't come in for him? Mm-hmm. And we won't be able to sign another winger. And like I was saying before, if it's between Son and Semenyo just for next season alone, I'll probably pick in Son anyway. But with Son there, we still need more quality in that front line.
So it means selling Richarlison and signing either a winger / striker or what his name is, Arnaud Kalimuendo, who's a striker who can sometimes play out wide, kind of player. Or it means moving Tel or Johnson to or even Son to the striker position,
which again is just square pegs and round holes.
Well, it was under Ange. Maybe under Frank it wouldn't be.
Maybe, yeah.
So that's something to consider. Or
a Brennan.
Or Brennan. Do we just bite the bullet and have a difficult conversation with Gray? I can't really see us bringing in a midfielder without having that conversation with Gray. We all accept we need another midfielder. I think the club said that's their number 1 priority.
Yeah.
So unless we're going to replace like a Richarlison with a midfielder, I don't know how else we do it without leaving Gray out.
Yeah. Look, uncomfortable conversations need to be had in the background at Tottenham. But look, that is the situation, guys. It's not a great one.
Ben Ham says Tanganga has a 1.2 million release clause.
Tanganga, eh? He's had a great time of it at Millwall.
Tanganga. Would you rather Tanganga or Kyle Walker-Peters?
Tanganga, I think.
Tanganga.
I know that's probably an unpopular opinion, but...
Isn't Walker-Peters more what we need?
Potentially, but you've also got... We don't have anyone that can fill in that role at centre-back, but Gray can fill in at full-back.
Well, we have 4 centre-backs.
Yeah, I guess. So you're happy to go in 4 centre-backs then?
I mean, rather that than three full-backs. That's the choice we're making here. Do we have 4 full-backs with Kyle Walker-Peters, or do we stick with 3 and have 5 centre-backs with Tanganga?
And Gray can fill in at full-back
And Gray can fill in at full-back. Well, depending if we sign a midfielder or not.
Yeah.
Because we'll have to leave him out.
Oh, God, these are the decisions, man. But you let us know in the comments.
I think we just have to sign Kyle Walker-Peters, go with 4 centre-backs, don't really have an option, put Gray out of the Champions League list, sign a midfielder, and then you have to sell Richarlison, and then I guess Son has to be sold, I guess. Unless you just keep Son and you just go with the wingers that we have. Or you just sign a winger in place of Richarlison and you move one of the other players to front line. I'm not sure which is best.
Whatever it is, it's a mess. Whatever we do, it's an absolute mess. And let's hope they can somehow get it right. We have heard that, Frank wants to revamp the squad, and maybe revamping the squad is selling a few players that we're not expecting to sell this summer.
Maybe Bentancur's one of them.
Maybe Bentancur. Who knows who it can be? Bentancur could easily be one of them with 1 year left in his contract, and We haven't heard that he's signing or not signing. We don't know what's going on with that. So anyone that is close to the end of their contract is probably potentially on the firing line.
So if we could end up selling Romero, Bentancur, and Son, that would leave room for 3 signings. And Richarlison, that's 4 signings. If we're
Romero,
revamping things.
Bentancur, and Son, yeah.
And Richarlison.
That'll give us a defender, midfielder, and attacker.
And then Richarlison, that's 2 attackers. So maybe that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
But Romero's not helping us.
But if you're selling Bentancur and Basuma, you kind of need 2 midfielders.
But we only have 1.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Gray becomes more of a fixture and you sign 1.
Yeah. Like I said, very difficult decisions need to be made. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Got some super chats to bring to you guys. First up from George U, members chat member for 41 months, and he says Ben and Sim are walking legends. Big up to you, George. You're an absolute legend yourself, my friend. Dark Sun G says, do we have to sell? Can't we just leave some players out of the Champions League squad but use them for the Premier League? Radu is probably out until January. I don't think he is going to be out till January, to be honest. I think he's going to be back for pre-season. That's what his agent was suggesting, and he was back on the grass towards the back end of last season. So look, we can do that. We most definitely can do that, but our players going to get disgruntled if we do that.
I mean, they didn't come here for us to qualify for Champions League. I need to be left out of the squad, didn't they?
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? So that wouldn't be great. Look, if Radu's, we don't really know for sure, but Radu's back on the grass at the moment, so I would suggest he could be fit for the start of the season. If there is a setback, or if he is not as far along as we think, there might be a conversation to be had to leave him out, but that means an even more difficult conversation in January unless we loan him out or something, which is, I mean, I wouldn't be. Look, if we loan him out while he's recovering from that ACL and get him back to his best at another club, for us to bring him back is not a terrible option, but that could be one way to go, I guess.
And Dark Sun G says, maybe loan out Richie, Biss, Davis out the squad, leave out Radu and Kulu because of their long-term injuries, and maybe leave out Sarr of the Champions League squad until after the AFCON. I mean, the AFCON,
I mean, it's January, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's not missing any of the group stage games because of the AFCON.
Except for the ones, there's 2 in Jan nowadays.
Oh, is there 2 in Jan? But
yeah.
I think the AFCON starts, it starts the end of, okay, so he'll miss 2.
Yeah, he'll miss 2. Yeah, maybe Decky's one you leave out till Jan if he's not, depending on when he's back. But he's targeting September, so it doesn't sound like he's going to be out for too long. But I guess maybe those 2, maybe you have a real look at them and think, can we do some movement there?
Yeah. Dark Sanji again with the super chat says, if we need a centre back, how about Carter Vickers?
Carter Vickers, I think Ange would have liked him.
Yeah, had him at Celtic.
He's must be homegrown, right?
Yeah, I think he is.
Club trained, because he was there.
Carter Vickers, Dennis Serkin, Romain Mundle.
Carter Vickers, Walker Peters, or Tanganga, or Serkin, or Mundle.
I don't know, man. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't want any of them, to be honest, but we might have to have one of them. But look, let's move on because we are running out of time. We're going to look at some stats behind Mathys Tel, and we're going to be sitting here convincing you why Mathys Tel is going to absolutely cook under Thomas Frank next season. There has been a lot of conversation regarding why have we re-signed Mathys Tel. The conversation before about the squad makeup is another question why we sign Mathys Tel if we want to bring in another winger and a more experienced one. But I've mentioned it before. I think he does profile very similar to a Kevin Sade, which Thomas Frank got unbelievable output out of last season, 10, 11 goals out on that left-hand side. And in our opinion, we think that Mathys Tel could have a similar impact for Spurs this season.
Yeah, I think we're going to look at some reasons why we think Tel could be our Kevin Sade. We know Tel last season stuck out on the wing, kind of quite hugging the touchline, not getting close to goal. Only scored 2 goals in 13 appearances when he came to Spurs in January. Kevin Sade, on the flip side, scored 11 Premier League goals for a Brentford team, obviously with a lot lesser budget. Also, he had been recovering from a long-term injury. But Frank has clearly had used him in a different way. And I'm going to explain how it is. So if you bring up that first pie chart you got there, so this is how kind of Sade and Tel compare purely off winger traits. So the blue is Sade, the red is Tel. So purely just like as a winger, when it comes to kind of being creative, when it comes to how many carries they make, all this kind of stuff, assists, crosses, all these different kind of metrics when it comes like take-ons and that kind of stuff. Tel outperforms Sade on that aspect, and Tel, like as a winger, is clearly he's playing a different role to Kevin Sade. Sade plays a different role, so he outperforms him. But if you look at them comparing them as forwards, as inside forwards, or you put the other pie chart on, it paints a very different picture. So now the red is Sade and the blue is Tel. So you can see this is them how they compare it forwards, and this is much more how many shots they're getting on target, how many goals they're scoring, what the XG is, goal creating actions, all this kind of stuff carries into the penalty area. And Sade, this is where Sade really is outperforming Mathys Tel. He profiles a lot different as a forward than a winger, and that's the difference. Sade has been playing as an inside forward last season. Mathys Tel has been playing as an out-and-out winger, and those are the two big difference. And if you look at the positioning of both players, it kind of proves my point, I think. Sade, a lot more kind of central, a lot more taking up very different positions, a lot more kind of concentration in the penalty area, and a lot more closer to goal. You see with Mathys Tel, he's picking up the ball a lot more in his own half. He's picking up a lot more of the ball in the middle third of the pitch, and he's actually touching the ball a lot more. Whereas Sade isn't actually as involved as Tel. He kind of picks his moment to break the lines, make that movement, waits for the right time to get a pass off, and then runs in behind. Yeah. And when he does get the ball, he's in a much better position to hurt the opposition, whereas Tel was picking up the ball out wide. He's picking up the ball with a lot more defenders in front of him, while Sade is looking on the last line. He's looking to get in behind the defence, and usually when he gets the ball, he's only got the keeper to beat, whereas Mathys Tel has got one or two defenders to beat.
Yeah, and I feel like when I was watching Mathys Tel last season, you know, he would take quite a few shots in a game, and a lot of them you just don't expect him to score from with where he's taking the shots from. I felt like watching him as well, I would think he would be a lot better suited to playing that kind of inside forward role, or, you know, much closer and central to what Sade does play. And under the coaching of Thomas Frank, he'll get him into those areas. We all saw him doing the tactical analysis and how XG is a massive thing for him, and he'll get Mathys Tel in a lot higher XG positions, which will get more goals out of him.
Because I was actually looking at some of the data comparing the two, and actually when it comes to carrying the ball, Mathys Tel outperforms Sade at carrying the ball forward and progressive carries. And he also carries the ball more into the final third than Sade. But Sade outperforms Tel at carrying the ball into the penalty box. Yeah. So that's the difference. It's where you're carrying the ball. It's the positions you're taking up when you get the ball, and how effective you are in getting into those positions. And I think I've got some key metrics I've pointed out, which I think it kind of establishes the difference between what Sade's been doing last season and Tel. So you bring on the next table. So the first one is, as much Tel was having more touches last season than Sade, but if you look at touches in the box in the attacking penalty area, Sade is having more than Tel. So even though Tel's having more touches and getting more involved than Sade, Sade is getting on the ball in a lot more dangerous positions and a lot more inside the box where he can get shots off and closer to goal and that kind of stuff. This key metric as well, average shot distance, which is really interesting. Tel is having his shots on average about 16 yards from goal. Sade is taking shots from 11 yards, 11 and a half yards, so much closer. Those 5 yards make all the difference when it comes to how you're gonna, how more likely you are to score, find the corner, how easy it is to finish those chances. And I think another stat that it shows us as well is the XG they're having per shot, so basically how good a chance it is when they're having the shot. Tel is 0.1 per shot. Sade is 0.15, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a 40th difference in percentile. So Tel's in the Sade is in the 90th percentile, whereas Tel's in the 50th.
In XG terms, it's a hell of a lot.
It's a hell of a lot, exactly.
Yeah, it really
it's a 5% increase in how likely you are to score, essentially, from those positions. So Sade's having more touches in the box. He's having shots closer to goal, and his shots are being taken from better places when it comes to XG.
And that shows you exactly how much a tactical setup can change the output of a player. Like, no matter how good you are as a player, you need the tactics to go for you, and you need to play to your strengths to get the biggest amount of output out of you. And I think Kevin Sade this season is one of the biggest examples of that, because when you compare a Kevin Sade to a Mathys Tel, like if I would have asked you who's better, Kevin Sade, Mathys Tel, a year ago, when Tel was at Bayern and Sade was still at Brentford not doing much, I think 9 people out of 10 would probably say, yeah, well, I'd rather sign Mathys Tel. But you look at last season, because of what Thomas Frank has done with Sade and what Ange Postecoglou was doing with Mathys Tel, that opinion would have been flipped 180. So I feel like when Thomas Frank gets his hands on Mathys Tel and really starts to get these things out of him, get him in the right positions, get him in high XG quality chances, I think the opinion on Mathys Tel is going to change dramatically.
And that's the thing, because actually on the underlying data, Tel outperforms Sade in a lot of metrics. He's a bit more creative than Sade. He's a bit better when it comes to getting assists and key passes.
Right? The more creative thing's also down to tactics, because if he's a touchline winger, he's going to be asked to create a lot more than what he was asked Sade to do last season, was like ghost into the box and get those chances.
But also his dribbling, his ability to carry the ball. He's a bit better than Sade at all these different things, what the data suggests. But the difference in the data, as I think it all kind of comes down to, if you bring the heat maps back on again, I think this is what it comes down to. What positions are they taking up? Where are they picking up the ball? Where are they making the runs? And are they in positions to be clinical? Are they in positions to be effective and hurt the opposition? And I think that difference as well, as you can see, was interesting. Sade barely comes back into his own half.
Yeah.
He basically waits for his opportunity to pounce and hurt the opposition, whereas Tel, as you can see, a lot more concentration, helping out defence or coming deeper to get the ball as well. This is more where they pick up the ball as well. So Tel is coming a lot deeper, whereas Sade is very much being asked, get forward, get into the opposition half, get into their box, and we'll find you. And I think that's what he's going to do with Tel. And if he does that with Tel, I think the data suggests he's got as good a finishing, if not better, than Sade. He's a better ball carrier with the ball at his feet than Sade. He's got more capability of creating when he does get the chance to do that as well. So I believe with Sade getting 11 goals, there's no reason why Tel can't even get more than that.
Yeah, and I was saying in one of the videos a couple of days ago that what I'm expecting from Mathys Tel next season is 15 goal contributions, goals and assists. And I don't think that's beyond all realms of possibility. And I saw one of you commenters out there said, 15 goals of assist out of Mathys Tel. Are you having a laugh? Are you deluded? But I think it just proves what he did with Kevin Sade. There is no reason, like you said, why Tel can't get better numbers than that.
Yeah, and I think Tel profiles very similar to Sade in terms of a lot of their underlying data as well. As much as Tel outperforms him a lot of it is very similar in terms of how often, how many times they pass, the quality of their passes, all these different things is actually quite similar. If anything, Tel outperforms him in a lot of them. But they actually profile very, very similarly in how they are as wingers. But the difference is Sade's been playing as a forward and Tel has been playing as a winger. And if once that changes, once Tel moves more forward, which is, I think, his best position and where he's at his best, I think Tel is going to surprise a lot of people next season in the difference you see in him.
And also, everything that we've been speaking about at Tel also relates to Sonny as well. Because if Sonny is still here next season, then Sonny will also be getting in those better positions where he's the most dangerous. And he's obviously 20 times more clinical than both these players put together.
Yeah.
So I think if Sonny does stay here, this is why I keep saying I think you could see an 1,000 times better Sonny than what we saw last season, impacting games a lot more than what we saw last season. So I really hope we keep Sonny. And if we have Son and Tel as rotation options on the left wing under Frank, with all the kind of metrics that we've just spoken about in terms of what positions they're going to be taking up on the pitch, Frank getting them in really high XG positions, I think we can see a lot of goals from our left wing.
And I think that thing 100% about Son, because if you see as well, Sade coming back into his half very little, not touching the ball much in his half, whereas Son had a much higher as well, similar to Tel, high concentration. If we get Son in those positions where he's just on the last line, hanging back, ask him just to get through on goal, make those runs, which he's one of the best players in the league, if not the best, at timing his runs through on goal and finishing. I think he's going to fly in that position. So the only difference between, I think, Son and Tel is, even though Son was out wide and it wasn't his true, what he's strong at, he was still able to actually perform really well in the creative metrics, whereas Tel didn't do so great in the creative metrics. But just because Son is such a great player, he kind of, still was able to get quite regular goals and assists, even not playing in his true position. But once you get him back in that forward as an inside forward rather than a winger, again, you're going to see a better Son.
Well, do you think we convinced them?
We'll have to wait and see what the comments say.
We'll have to wait and see what the comments say. But let's hope we have convinced you. Let us know your thoughts. Does this change your mind about Mathys Tel at all? I mean, do we even need to change your mind? Because 72% of you said that, well, not you guys, but on Twitter said that Tel is going to be a good signing for us. And after going through all these stats, I'm starting to get more excited about the prospect of seeing Mathys Tel under Thomas Frank next season. But that is all we have time for today, people. Let us know all your thoughts in the comment section below. We'll see you all tomorrow, unless some news breaks, and we'll see you this evening. But like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.